Welcome to the Learning the Basics of Blender, but getting just a little bit more advanced as well. It's beginner, of course it's beginner, but you know, progressing past the basics of the basics. So let's start with some sprinkles, because that is something everybody is dying. You know, I've been reading the hashtags and the trends of the global Twitter, and everyone's just going wild for sprinkles. No, they're not, but let's pretend they are. So we're going to add some sprinkles to our donut. Now, right now we've got things in our outliner here. We mentioned the outline at the top right hand corner, and they're all just kind of like thrown in here. We've got the archive, you know, which we created before we did the sculpting and everything, but it's all just kind of thrown in. And if we're going to start adding extra stuff like sprinkles and all this kind of stuff, it's going to get a little bit complicated. So let's just organize it a little bit. So I'm going to select my donut and my icing here, and I'm going to hit M for Mary, or move. It's probably a better one, move. And I'll give it a new collection, donut. There we go. So this little checkbox, by the way, in case you're curious, it'll hide it, and I'll give it a new collection, donut. And I'm going to hit M for Mary, or move. It's probably a better one, move. And I'll give it a new collection, donut. There we go. There we go. So this little checkbox, by the way, in case you're curious, it'll hide it from both the viewport and the render. So it's like disabling something almost, but keeping it within your scene. And then I guess I'll have one for my plane. We'll call it the environment. So I just selected the plane, M, new collection, environment, and then this stuff I can just rename this collection. I'll just call it cam and light, or lights, camera, act, I don't know, right? So something like that. Okay, whoa, what was that? Something. just flashed on screen. Cool. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to hide the environment, I'm going to hide the donut, and I'm going to hide the scene, and we are going to add in our very first singular sprinkle. So if you look at reference photos of sprinkles, let me pull it up here. Ignore my tabs here. I've just been watching some Theo Vaughn. Love that guy. So these are the sprinkles. And you'll notice that, I mean, for one, there's no like uniform, you know, Confederate standard of sprinkles. There's just like all sorts. There's some that are shiny, some that are dull, but they all seem to have a very similar shape. It's just like mostly straight, but with like slight little like wiggleness to them. Some of them are shiny, some of them are dull. But anyways, that's the kind of overall shape. So you could start with a like a cylinder object to become your sprinkle, but they've got like a rounded edge. So instead, what I'm going to do, I'm going to start with a sphere. So we're going to go Shift A, Mesh, and we're going to go UV Sphere. Now by default, it's going to drop in this giant looking thing, and we'll set, yeah, first of all, the size of it. I'm going to go to like 1 millimeter. Like really, really, really small. And then for the segments, the rings here, and the like basically the resolution of the sphere, that's quite important because this is going to be basically duplicated all over the donut, like basically like 1,000 times. So any resolution you've got here is just multiplied by however many sprinkles you have. Point is if you have a high res sprinkle, one single sprinkle, for one, it's not even going to be visible in the render. Like it's so far away, it's not that detailed, but also it's just going to like drastically increase your render times. So I'm going to go with 12 segments and 6 rings. So very, very low res. And that's the radius, and there we go. If we bring in the donut, you can see how this looks in relation to it. In fact, I might as well move this over here like that. Just one little sprinkle, the start of a sprinkle. And I'm just going front. Oh, hang on, front. Yeah, I should have put it along the front axis. That's probably easier to. It's like when I'm working with a scene, I like to like keep my camera like looking down the front angle, and then I have everything like positioned that way so I don't get kind of like lost in which side view or front view, whatever. Anyway, so I'm just putting this on the left hand side just for whatever, just keep it here, right? Okay, so with my sprinkle here, oh gosh, focus it, number pad period. Okay, so we want it to look elongated, and so the way we're going to do that is obviously edit mode with tab, and then while we're in edit mode, I'm going to grab the top half of my vertices here, and you'll notice that it won't select the other side. So make sure you're in X-ray mode when you do that. So select the whole top half, and then if we would like to move it, like it would just, yeah, it would be elongated, but it would also be like tapered. Like it basically, we want to like almost like create like a duplicate, like a middle part of it. So we're going to hit E to extrude, which you'll remember was the same hotkey that we used to make those like dripply bits of the icing. So it basically basically kind of like takes that and yeah, like moves it up, but then like adds a space between it. Anyway, you get the idea. Okay, so we got one like that. And what I can do, because I want to make like that end that is kind of like the reference, of course, it's I mean, see if we can actually find a reference photo. Yeah, it's like, it's rounded, but it's not like as round as it is. It's not like a sphere end. It's just like, it's a hard cut. Basically, I watched video actually on how they do it, but it's like, they get like piping of like icing and they just do like long lines on like a baking tray and then they bake it and then it just creates like baked icing, and then I believe that's what it is. It's just like baked icing. Maybe these shiny manufactured ones, they may be different, but yeah, you can make them yourself. Apparently they're really easy to do. Anyways, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale this along the Z axis. So if I hit S and then Z, that's doing the effect that I want it to do. It's just sort of tapering it in a bit, like so. And then I'll do the same thing with the bottom. Bottom one, SZ, and there we go. Look at that, one singular sprinkle by itself. And while we're at it, we might as well go into shade smooth. And this is in object mode, of course. Make sure you're in object mode. Great. Now, with our donut here, we could, if we wanted to, we could, you know, grab it and like move it here and then duplicate it and then duplicate it, rotate it, and etc. But I'm pretty sure the tutorial would be 10 hours long and I would be receiving death threats from people saying, how dare you lull me into a tutorial and then hit me with duplication. So there's a better way to do things. So there is, for something like this, you want to use basically what's called particle instances, which is where it's referencing one object and it's duplicating it over the top of the surface of another object. So that, we're going to do that. So I'm going to select my icing here, and there's the particle panel right here. And I'll move my little camera head out the way so that we don't block this view. Okay, so I just click, oh yeah, by the way, I don't know why there's not a like new button, like the like materials there's a new button or whatever, but then like particles there's no button for like new. I'm sure that's a bug, but anyway, it's the plus top right button there, click plus, and that'll add a new particle setting. And if you were to hit play, like spacebar, you would see that you get these like white dots appearing. So there are two types of particles. There are like emission types, which are like animated essentially, and then you've got hair, which are static. So now if I play, you can see nothing happens. So hair is the one we actually want, even though it doesn't look like it. For each one of these strands, we're going to reference that that single sprinkle there. So you can do that by going to underneath render, right there, render. It's rendering as a path or a strand, which is great for hair for a character. But in our case, we want to instead render as an object. And then the object that we're going to reference, this instant object, we're going to click this little eyedropper here. And the eyedropper allows you to just basically click any object in your scene. And there we go. Look at that. We have little single sprinkles over our donut. So the size of them is defined by this size right here. So this is really how you're going to decide. I got a bird outside my window. I'm not sure. Sure if you can hear that. It's going to decide how, yeah, like some, like really, there's no uniform sprinkle either. Like some are like really like thin and like almost like, yeah, like little hair particles, something like they're so thin. And then others just like thick and chunky. So really like make the sprinkle that you feel best suits your needs. Okay, so that's the scale. And then there's another setting here, scale randomness, which I normally would use. Because by the way, this settings, like this particle settings and what I'm doing here, this is how you make like rocks across a landscape. You just like use this and go, and for this case, scale randomness is perfect because then you got rocks of different sizes. But it's also, it's not like shrinking them like just along one axis. It's also like it's scaling them. So sprinkles aren't, they're all like the same thickness essentially. So this setting actually doesn't work for us. little bit, but anyway. The main setting I know you're all thinking right now is like they're all facing the same direction, so that's not good. So we need to change the rotation, and for rotation, you need to use advanced settings. Check the box. I don't know, I mean, honestly, in my opinion, it shouldn't have even just be an advanced setting, because I've always used advanced settings because you always need rotation. So anyway, check advanced, and then under rotation, we're going to check that box, click the little drop down, and orientation axes, we want to use normal. And it'll still be facing a direction, but it'll be a different direction. And you might think randomize is the one that we need right there. But randomize will, it'll rotate, but it'll rotate them on a different axis to the point that they're like standing up on top of each other, like facing upwards, which isn't right. What we want is this one, randomize phase. So when I do that, they're staying along like their same rotation, but it's like rotating along that axis, not the other axis. Anyways, there we go. Though having said that, I will use a little bit of random amount here because sprinkles, like they land on top of melted icing, right? And some of them will land like top on like that, and they'll like maintain a little bit of this rotation. So they won't be like crazy, it won't be like that, but they will have like a little bit of like tilt to them essentially. Great. So all well and good so far. One thing to note though is if we just hide the underlying donut, if we go underneath, you will see that we have sprinkles underneath our icing as well as on top. So this is, you know, in edit mode, you can see it's one solid object. And right now, Blender doesn't know that the sprinkles are supposed to go just on the top. So it's just placing them everywhere. So what we want to do is we want to define which parts are going to have the sprinkles, and we're going to do that in weight paint mode. So with our icing selected, object, weight paint mode. Or by the way, if you want a hotkey, Control Tab will bring up a pie menu with all of those options up there. So that's kind of handy. So weight paint mode. Now when you do this, it'll go blue. And essentially what you're looking at is, you know, like, what was the name of that movie with the aliens? Aliens vs. Predator? The one with the Predator. And it's like heat vision mode. That's what you're looking at. So blue means 0 weight. Now, if I just click anywhere on here, you'll see you get like heat paint map. Red means 1, blue means 0, and then these values in between are obviously values in between. So the red values is where the sprinkles are going to appear. So if you try painting, it's like it's going to be very slow, and that's because our particles are turned on. So if we just disable, click that little monitor thing there, it'll just disable it from the viewport. So now when we draw, it's going to be a lot faster. Okay, so the same hotkey, by the way, as sculpting, F will change the size of your brush. And again, if you want to bring up that tool setting thing here, which probably should be on by default, but for whatever reason it's not, these are like the weight and the strength of your brush. Like you could go like a low strength and just kind of paint. But anyway, default settings are fine, and I'm just going to paint like along the top here. Like so. And I just want to make sure that there is, that's weird. Why aren't I allowed to paint right there? Oh, strength. Oh, I always confuse those two. Strength, Strength, full strength, but paint a weight of 1. There we go. Yeah, so I want to make sure that there are parts of it that, like especially down here, the sprinkles would obviously fall off if it was like on an angle too extreme. So I just want to make sure it's just on the top. Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to like go into too much detail for a beginner's tutorial, but you know, I want the result to look good. And I've seen, you know, the past 3 years of people on Twitter adding me into their rendered result that they finished. And I had like all these notes. I'm like, you should fix this. This is too uniform. This is, you know, and it's like, well, I should have put that in the tutorial, shouldn't I? If everybody's got the same problems, it means it's my fault from the tutorial. So anyway, I'm just trying to make it look nice. Anyway, that's fine, right? I'm just yabbering. So Control Tab, and then I'm going to go back to object mode. So bring back our sprinkles, and then the way that we tell the particle system to use that weight paint is by right down here underneath vertex groups. So you can choose a whole bunch of different properties that'll be controlled by that, but the one we're looking for is density, and it's group. By the way, if you ever mess up your like your weight paint, or for whatever reason you can't find it, it's here, vertex groups. So whenever you start painting, it'll create a new vertex group, and it'll be right here. But if you ever mess up, you can just come to here and then click that little minus button. That'll delete that, and then you can click plus and you can add a new one. Yeah. And anyways, there you go. So we now have it on top of the icing where it should be. Hooray. We got too many sprinkles, you know. We're going to get to that in the following parts. The sprinkle step, it's a little advanced. It's a little, it's not advanced, it's a little involved. So this is going to be split up over a couple of videos. This tutorial series is brought to you by Well, they look more like Tic Tacs. They're all the same color. And what's the fun of sprinkles if they're not different colors? So let's change the color. So the color of the sprinkle is defined by the material of the single sprinkle that it is referencing. So that is the object mode. This little guy right here. So if we went, to the material panel and then we added a new material and, looking at our donut here, you can see if we made these blue, then hey, look at that, we have blue sprinkles. But that's not going to help us because they're all the same color. Now, we could duplicate this and make like a whole bunch of different ones with different colors, and that was actually the way I did the first tutorial 3 years ago, because I actually thought that was easy for people to follow. But the best way to actually create a randomized color set on your sprinkles like this is to actually do something with the material nodes and get a little bit fancy. So let's, at the top here, along the top bar, you've got an option which we haven't clicked on yet called shading. Okay, so shading mode is, by the way, these modes, they're just like screen layouts, like these layouts, and then it'll put you into a specific type of, like, this is just the 3D view, but it's put you into look dev mode up here. But you could go into like, rendered mode, etc. And then this thing down here, this is nodes, the node viewer. For materials, right? So this is, you could find that in shader, editor, and then you've got object, etc. Anyway, make sure you've got the sprinkle selected, the one that is blue, right? And what we want to do is we want to add in a control which will make it so that, this color here, this blue color, is randomized depending on which particle it is. So this, by the way, all these settings that you see here, the reason they might look familiar is that they are the exact same settings that you see over in the right-hand side. This right-hand side, this bar here with all the settings, it's just like an easier way to access it. To change these settings. But if you need to get advanced, that's when you jump over to the node view, which is where we are right now, which is, yeah, we're going to do some fancy stuff. So this base color, right? So we could put anything in here. You could put an image texture in here. You could do everything. The one that we're looking for is a node. By the way, I'm hitting Shift A. And the node under input that I'm looking for is called object info. So I'm going to drag this in. And we've got a number of values here. So the way nodes work is essentially, if I take like one of these, for example, and I was to put this over here, it would, you know, depending on what this node here actually does, it would take that value. It's like, yeah, it's like mathematics. It's like taking this value or programming, referencing this value in another place. If I was to take the random value and I was to put that into the base color, you can see that this happens. All the colors, all the sprinkles are now black and white and various shades in between it. So this object info node, this random output of that is basically every time the object is repeated or duplicated or referenced, it's giving it a random value between 0 and 1, right? Anywhere along there. It could be like one of them is like 0.325, 0.693, whatever. And depending on where it is along there, it's by default, it's giving it a white value, or sorry, a black value and a white value. And it's just basically, yeah, it's like a gradient between them. So each of these are matching that. And that's well and good if you want sprinkles that look like somebody's dead relative's ashes sprinkled on the top. But what we want is something a little more lively. So what we can do between here, so where it takes the random value and it's 0 to 1, is we can put in Shift A, converter, color ramp. So if we can drop in this color ramp here and put this in here, nothing will have changed at the moment. But what this is doing is it's taking the 0 to 1 and it's now transforming that across this gradient. And this gradient here can be whatever colors or whatever look we actually want. So if I made this black value here and I change this to be orange, you can see that we have this. So as you can guess, the next step is like, how do you want your sprinkles to look? And then how do you want to set this up? So in my case, I'm going to go with a sort of a pastel themed color scheme. And I'm going to go with like 5 different sprinkle color sets. So let's go like a blue color like this. And then I'm going to go a purple color. And then I'm going to go a hot pink color. And by the way, this is all referencing like stuff that I found on the World Wide Web. I've got a Pinterest board, actually. I'll put the link in the description. But I've found like some like donut sprinkle looks that I like, and I decided to copy kind of like the color scheme. But anyway, it's basically what I'm doing now. So let's add another one. I'm going to make this one yellow, and then the last one is going to be white. Okay, great. So look at that. We now have, looking at our donut, we have those sprinkles. Whoops. Oh gosh, what have I done? We have those sprinkles, and they all have those colors. Now, one problem. And that is that it hasn't just assigned it these colors, it's also assigned it every value in between it. So it's also giving us a value like somewhere between pink and yellow. Like some of these sprinkles are going to be that color. And that's because this is a gradient and there's values in between it. So what we want to do is we want to change the gradient type to, instead of being linear, we want it to be a constant interpolation. So if I set that, now you can see that there is only, it's basically now binary, right? It's either on or it's off. It's not a value in between it, and that's perfect. That is exactly what we want. So you can see that it's, the way it works is it's like the distance after the marker in between that and the next marker is that color. So this white value currently has no contribution. So I just got to move these along a little bit, like so. Like that. And you can also see very quickly, like you can change the color scheme of your sprinkles. If you want more yellow ones or more hot pink ones or whatever, it's just it's an easy way to actually like change the color scheme of the sprinkles. It's kind of cool once you set this up. Like I didn't want to do this for like my tutorial 3 years ago because I was like, I don't know, like nodes and random settings and color ramp, it's too advanced. But then the feedback I got from that tutorial when I did a survey was like, everyone's like, why didn't you use the random set with color ramp? And I'm like, how did you even know that was a thing? I thought that was too advanced. But anyways, so there we go. We now have different colors, yay, across the whole thing. You'll notice we've only put this into the base color because everything else, like the roughness and all that kind of thing, that's going to be the same. Like those values across sprinkles, they're not going to change. It's really just the colors of the sprinkles. Speaking of which, by the way, we should probably increase the roughness of the sprinkles so that they're a little bit more like chalk looking, because that's kind of what a lot of sprinkles look like. There's also some that are shiny, so it's really up to you if you want to go for a shiny sprinkle or a chalkish looking sprinkle. But that's going to do it for that. All right, now let's just jump into the next part of the sprinkles, which is you can see The next problem is that they are all the exact same size, right? And obviously sprinkles being sprinkles, no two sprinkles are the same, right? It's they're all unique, they're all special snowflakes. Some of them are a little bit bendy, some of them are like short and fat, and some of them are like almost nothing there. So that's what we want to create. Now, as I mentioned, there is, we can't use that scale randomness value. Crap, I just lost it. Oh my gosh. That's what happens when you use a version of Blender which is experimental. It crashed on me, so that was fun. So let me pause the recording while I redo all that. Yay! Okay, so as I was saying, now that I've caught up and redone everything, we can't change this scale randomness value. I'm really playing with fire right now, doing the exact same thing that made it crash, because it changes the thickness of the sprinkles, and that's not good. So really, what we want is we want to have these sprinkles that just have like different heights to them, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my sprinkle here, and I am in layout, edit, object mode, whatever, and I'm going to duplicate it, and this is going to be another sprinkle. And I'm going to go into toggle X-ray mode so that I can select the whole thing. And I'm going to make this one twice as long. Like so, okay? Now, when you do this, you come back to your donut over here, and nothing has changed. And the reason, some of you probably figured out, it's quite obvious, is that it's still referencing the original object. It's still referencing this single object here. But you can choose to, instead of rendering just a single object, you can reference an entire collection of objects. And that is what we're going to do. So I'm going to select my, first of all, let's give this a name. So I'm going to hit F2, and I will call this sprinkle short, and I will call this sprinkle long. Okay, and then I'm selecting both of them, and I'm going to move it to a brand new collection, and we'll call it. What are we going to call it? We're going to call it sprinkles. Whew. Really, really hard to know what's going to happen next. So down here, collections, instance collections, sprinkles. And there we go. So now it's randomly basically pulling from one of those two things. And the cool thing is that now we can have as many different types of sprinkles as we want, because there's not just short ones and long ones, but there's also medium ones. Oh, exciting. We got a medium one. We've also got some bendy ones. So let's. Oh no, is it gonna crash? I think it's gonna crash. It's gonna crash. It's crashed. Let's do that again. All right, we're back. Yeah, some people would just remove that from the tutorial, the parts where it crashes, but I think it's a valuable lesson. Always save. Also, I will say that I'm using an experimental build. It's very rare for Blender to crash this often. Anyways, as I was saying, there are some bendy ones. So I'm going to duplicate this guy, and I am going to, yeah, create like some bendy parts. So I'm just like, oh, I should definitely explain what I just did there, right? So Control R is going to allow us to create a loop cut, right? Control R. And then when you click, sorry, first of all, you get that like outline, that yellow outline, which shows you where the loop is going to go. And it's basically adding detail, essentially. That's what the best form of a loop is. And then if I scroll wheel, I can increase the number of loops. All right. So this is just like some very basic modeling here. So I just scrolled it up to give me like 2 loops, and then I just click, and then it'll ask you where do you want to place them. And if you just right click, it'll just place them right in the default middle area. And then I've got, a bendy sprinkle looking thing, right? And then I'll do the same thing. I'll duplicate my medium one here as well. I'm gonna save as I go. Very important. The other thing you can do, by the way, is just like extrude up. And every time you extrude it, it's going to create one of those loop cuts. It's the exact same way of doing exact same thing. It's just different ways of doing it, essentially. That's actually kind of like a little bit too wormy looking, right? Yeah, it's kind of cool. And my apologies, but this add-on and all the crashes and everything, but sometimes I'm showing you what I'm pushing and other times I'm not. And my apologies, but that's yeah, we got to fix that add-on. It's really bugging me, actually. It just turns itself off randomly. Anyways, look at this. We got all these little squiggly worms and stuff all over it. One thing to note as well is like some of them are like really sticking out there. And part of the reason for this is that, I haven't even got it turned on, but my origin points will actually show you here. The origin point, that little dot there, is the point at which it is attaching itself to the top of the icing there. So that being where it is, it's probably not in the best place. It should probably be in the middle of it. And you can see that all of them have problems with that. So if I right click after selecting all of them and then I select set origin to geometry, it's going to basically place it in the center of all of those objects. And now when we come back, you should see it's a little bit more improved than it is. One big problem a lot of people had with the previous tutorial was that you've got intersection, right? Particles that intersecting other particles. And unfortunately, there is just no good way to fix that. The particle system in Blender it's a little old and it just doesn't have this ability yet. You really want to be able to like read the shape of a mesh and then detect when meshes are intersecting. It should be able to do that, but the current version doesn't do it. I think the plan is for 2.83 or 2.84, something like that. They're going to roll in particle nodes, which should hopefully have this feature, and a lot more other things. But for now, really my best advice is if you see things that are intersecting and you're not happy with how it looks, you can change the seed here. The seed is just like a random value. Like every new seed will be a different mix, a different version of it. So I find just find a seed that looks the best. And this will come like doing it now is kind of a little bit preemptive because when it comes to rendering, that's really when you want to check like the intersection of things and choose your seed value. But just want to give that a heads up because I know a lot of people have that question of like, how do I fix it? It looks terrible. So anyway. Now, the other thing I want to do is I want to add just a few spheres to it because whilst looking at all the different sprinkles there, I noticed that it's quite a common trend to have these little balls, like almost like marbles. Like it just looks marbles. Sometimes they're like star-shaped, love heart-shaped, just kind of like that. I don't know what you call that, like old pastel, like old-fashioned candy. That's just like all like crushed up kind of thing. Like you could do a lot of really cool stuff with sprinkles. But anyways, I just want to add some balls. So funny balls. I am going to right here inside my sprinkles collection, I'm going to add a new UV sphere. And of course, it's going to be way too big and way too high res. So I want it to be higher res probably than the sprinkles because it's going to be a little bit bigger, but not too high res. So something like that. And then I'll turn down the size to be, say, 5 millimeters. No, too big. Let's go 3. Something like that. That's, actually, no, maybe 4. Okay, and then I'm going to right-click that and shade smooth so that it is smooth. And it's not using the current material over here, which is good because I actually just want to make it one single color. So very simple, new material. And the color is just going to be like a blue, like a saturated, a little bit more saturated aqua color. And it's actually quite shiny. Like the roughness would be quite low on this. So, and I think the reason that this has become popular in decorating and everything is the same reason that, we'll get to this. It's the same reason that, like, it's actually art aesthetic. It's like, there's a technique which I'm still trying to learn myself, but it's like you don't want to have just like repetitive uniform detail everywhere because it just looks predictable and it just looks flat and boring and dull. If you can have like big elements, medium-sized elements, and then small elements that are placed in like kind of chaotic areas, it can look more interesting. So I believe that's the purpose of having this on cakes, and it works. But not right now. It looks like it's been invaded by some, I don't know, nanoparticles or something. So the problem is that it is it's picking from our sprinkles collection here. It's picking them evenly, right? It's just plucking them from this collection and they all have the same kind of relative importance or priority. But there is a setting here called use count. And if you enable this in the dropdown, you will see that you get a count value next to each of your sprinkle names. Now there's no way to say like reduce the importance of this, but you can increase the importance of everything else. So essentially, for everything other than the sphere, I want to increase the amounts of them. So for the, let's say like medium sprinkles, I'll go 60, 60. The long ones, you can also like tweak it because now like there's probably like longer sprinkles are probably less common than the medium ones. Same with the short ones, like that would be less common than the medium ones as well. Most of them would be medium. And then some of these long ones as well. And then finally, just the sphere. You can see that we've now got like just 3 spheres left because of the importance of them being so small. And that's basically it. Let's just cycle through this a little bit. Whoop, another segments. Seed here. Every time you do a new seed, like you might get like 3 or 4 or something like that appear on it. In fact, I might actually just increase these. I think the spheres are just a little bit too underplayed right now. Go 2 spheres. No, I'm going too much. I don't know. You can play with this yourself and just, as I said, you know, make the sprinkles that you want to see. Be the sprinkles that you want to see in the world. All right, let's bring back the environment. Let's just see how that looks. There you go, guys. That's the sprinkles. The amount of sprinkles, that's probably the other really big one, is the number on top there. And there's no right and wrong answer. It's really like some donuts have like a few sprinkles and they're like really big and like chunky, right? This tutorial